'Tis the season to be spooky. Hi, hello, my name is Jessica. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. It's Halloween time, aka spooky season, or if you don't really celebrate Halloween, it's fall/autumn. That being said, today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys all of the books, well, a majority of the books that I really want to read in fall. So pretty much just in October and November. Originally, this was just going to be the books that I really want to read within the next 3 months. As I was like going through my list and like getting the list ready, it just turned into pretty much books that are pretty much giving like the fall atmosphere. So I just decided, fuck it, I'm just gonna do books that I want to read in these next 2 months. Quick disclaimer, these are just books that I feel are putting me in that fall mood. Some of these you might not agree with me, but that's why I'm saying me. And also, I'm probably not going to read all of these books. In fact, I'm probably not going to read a majority of these books because I'm very much a mood reader. It is very, very hard for me to actually stay into one TBR, which is why I stopped filming TBR videos very early on in my channel. And originally this was actually going to be like 10 books, but then soon it turned into like it just kept on, the list just kept on growing and growing, and it was very difficult for me to just kick books off of the thing. So we've got like 20 books around, give or take. First off are going to be like more horror books, and then it's going to be more romance, and then afterwards it's going to be just books that like kind of have a few like genres intermingled in the book. Yeah, that's just how it's going to go. So first off, that I would really like to read is The Hunger by Alma Katsu, and I think I hauled this book in my last book haul. It says this: it is a tense and gripping reimagining of one of America's most haunting human disasters, the Donner Party, with a supernatural twist. Evil is invisible and it is everywhere. That is the only way to explain the series of misfortunes that have plagued the wagon train known as the Donner Party. Depleted rations, bitter quarrels, and the mysterious death of a little boy have driven the isolated travelers to the brink of madness. Though they dream of what awaits them in the West, long-buried secrets begin to emerge, and dissent among them escalates to the point of murder and chaos. As members of the group begin to disappear, the survivors start to wonder if there really is something disturbing and hungry waiting for them in the mountains, and whether the evil that has unfolded around them may have in fact been growing within them all along. So I don't really know about the Donner Party, so I can't really, it just sounded really good when I read the synopsis, so very excited. The next book on my TBR, I'm kind of cheating because I'm already like halfway through it, but I wanted to make sure I at least read like 1 or 2 books off this TBR within these next 2 months, but that is Tender as the Flesh by Agustina Bastarrica. This book is set in a dystopian world where basically there's this huge virus that is pretty much only attacking animals that we eat. I think just actually all animals in general, that has made them poisonous to humans, so we are no longer able to eat them. Because of this, the government has now allowed cannibalism. First, let me just say that yes, okay, that's not like you can just eat your neighbor, like you can just kill your neighbor and their family and eat them. Humans are sectioned into 2 parts: the cattle and the people who are not killed to be consumed. We're following a character named Marcos, and he is actually working, I think he owns the slaughterhouse where the humans are now being taken. His life is pretty much gone to shit. His wife has left him. His father is very, very sick. He's kind of just going by life in a daze, not really caring, not really like paying attention to what's going on. He's dead, but he's alive, you know? One day he's actually given a special gift, which he's given a human to pretty much do what they want. And like the thing is these specific humans who are pretty much raised to be eaten, having any kind of human interaction with them is extremely illegal. But then he starts to like really treat her like a human being because, you know, she is one, and it just goes from there. So I am 61% into this book. It is very graphic. The reviewers were not lying when they said that this is incredibly graphic, because it is. So go into it with that in mind. I actually needed to take a break because this is a lot, and it's actually a very short book, but I need to take a break. But I do plan on reading this within the month of October. So the next up, I wanted to make sure that I will actually read books off of my TBRs, and it's not really October time if I'm not reading one of these graphic novels. I will be reading Love Sickness by Junji Ito, which is a graphic novel filled with a few short stories. Ryosuke returns to the town where he once lived when rumors begin swirling about girls killing themselves after encountering a bewitchingly handsome young man. Harboring his own secret from his time spent in this town, Ryosuke attempts to capture the beautiful boy and close the case. So next up, a book that I really want to read this month, Certain Dark Things by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I received this arc from Tor Nightfire. Sylvia Moreno Garcia already published this book. This is just being republished by Tor Nightfire, and this is a book set in Mexico City. It involves vampires. I kind of started it already, and I almost got into a reading slump, not because of this book, just I get into reading slumps very easily now. So hopefully I will get to read this very soon. Super excited to read this. Last up on my horror physical TBR is Slewfoot by Brom. And this, first of all, look at this cover. It's just, if I, you know, this is a book set in the Puritan times in Connecticut, 1666, and this is following a young woman named Abatha, who is a recently widowed outcast. She cast aside, obviously, by her village, and she calls upon the spirit Slewfoot to help. Together, they ignite a battle between the pagan and the Puritan, one that threatens to destroy the entire village, leaving nothing but ashes and bloodshed in its wake. It just came out this year, like, I think it's September. I think it just came out. So very excited to read this book. This is the perfect time for me to read a book about witches. I'm sure many of you know that Kindle Unlimited has a great selection of like romance books. Turns out Kindle Unlimited also has a pretty great selection full of horror and scary books. These are some of the books that I really want to read that are available on Kindle Unlimited. The first one is Moonchild by Gabby Triana. This is following an 18-year-old girl named Valentina Callejas, and she was pretty much raised to do what her Cuban Catholic grandparents always say to do. But Valentina has always felt like different, and she's always felt this pull for tarot cards, nature, and the occult. And one day after she ditches her church retreat, she decides it's time to just go off on her own. She soon meets up with Macy, a half-sister that she's never met until now, in this tiny little rotting town 5 hours from the big city where she was raised. There she discovers the abandoned, oppressive Sun Lake Springs resort. There she meets the Claires, young physics drawn to the hotel's haunted history, who've been waiting for her to open a magical entryway to the spirit world. Valentina's sensitive hands tell a different story, of anguished spirits, menacing cracks, and hooded ghosts of Florida's unsavory past. Even a local legend, the beautiful Lady of the Lake, hints to the hotel's sinister history. To protect the Claires from the horrors awaiting them on the other side, Valentina must use her growing powers and decide once and for all if she's the witch she was meant to be. More books about witches and like the occult. Perfect time. Never read anything by Gabby Triana, so very excited. I think the reviews are pretty positive on Goodreads from what I remember. Next on my TBR is The Toymaker by Sergio Gomez. Raymond Gibson has been lonely in his old age, having never married and losing all his friends to time. Inspired by a ventriloquist act he sees on the television, he builds a dummy of his own. Unbeknownst to the residents of Dutch County, Mr. Gibson's wooden companion becomes possessed by a wicked spirit. Now 5 neighborhood kids will have to band together to defeat the evil only they believe is real. The power of their friendship will be the one hope to stop the dummy's terror. So this book really drew my attention because of the cover. It just really reminds me of the Goosebumps dummies, those little books, and I remember being terrified of them. This is obviously an adult version, and I already read Sergio's Camp Slaughter earlier this year, and it was so good, very gory, so I'm very much excited to read this next one. Next up, we have Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell. High up on the windswept cliffs of Pale Peak, Faye and Felix celebrate their new engagement. But soon a chorus of ghastly noises erupts from the nearby woods. The screams of animals, the cries of children, and the mad babble of 100 mournful voices. A dark figure looms near the windows in the dead of night, whispering to Faye. As the weather turns deadly, Felix discovers that his terrified fiancée isn't just mumbling in her sleep. She's whispering back. So the last book on my KU TBR is Curse of the Pigman by Asher Alice. Don't judge me for this, okay? First of all, this cover just gives me the American Horror Story. Which one was it? The Roanoke? The one where it was like the reality show sort of thing. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. I'll put it up on the screen because I can't really remember what it is. Failed baseball player Jason Dillon has just moved to the quiet Vermont town of East Valley, but unfortunately his timing couldn't have been worse. Though the entire 20th century only brought 8 notable storms to the Green Mountain State, Hurricane Ivana has just arrived with a special delivery, a tree through Jason's roof. On his desperate trek to find help, Jason comes upon Sophia, a little girl who has been tied up and left in the woods. Despite his best intentions, Jason's attempt to help the child has interrupted the ritual of a neighborhood cult, a ritual that protects the town from an ancient demonic swine. With all the roads leading out of town impassable, Jason and his few allies must not only escape the pursuing cultists, but somehow survive a curse that has left a majority of East Valley's population with an insatiable hunger. Last 2 books that I'm quickly going to mention on the horror TBR are books that are not out yet, so they're books that I would love to read, but they're not super high up on the TBR because they're not out yet, so I don't have them. And it is Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Kah, and this comes out October 18th. And also is The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling, and this comes out on October 5th. Not out yet, don't own them, so they're not super priority, but if I can read them, that would be great. Next books that I'm going to be talking about are the more romance books that I want to read. They actually are just like romance, but they've also got like more spookier elements to it. And I believe these are all books that are available on Kindle Unlimited, unless I say otherwise. First up, we have Gothicana by Ruiz. An outcast her entire life, Corvina Clem is left adrift after losing her mother. When she receives the admission letter from the mysterious University of Varenmoor, she accepts it as a sign from the universe. The last thing she expects, though, is an olden, secluded castle on top of a mountain riddled with secrets, deceit, and death. An enigma his entire life, Vad Deverell likes being a closed book but knowing exactly everything that happens in the university. A part-time professor working on his thesis, Vad has been around long enough to know the dangers the castle possesses. And he knows the moment his paths cross with Corvina, she's dangerous to everything that he is. They shouldn't have caught each other's eyes. They cannot be. But a chill-inducing century-old mystery forces them to collide. People have disappeared every 5 years for over 100 years, and Corvina is getting clues to unraveling it all, and Vad needs to keep an eye on her. I saw this book being recommended on Book Talk, so saw it was on Kindle Unlimited. Next up is a book that is extremely popular right now in the book community, especially book Twitter and Book Talk. That is A Lady of Rooksgrave's Manor by Katherine Moon. I know this is a reverse harem with monsters, and the main character, Esther. The main character is a nymphomaniac, so she goes to work like an escort, I think it is, kind of thing. And it deals with like monsters such as like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, vampires. I believe there's an invisible man. Is there a werewolf? I don't know. But yeah, so I've heard pretty good things about it. I've had it on my Kindle for a while now, so now's the best time to read it, really. So the next book on the romance portion TBR is Black Sunshine by Karina Howe. All Lenore Warwick wants for her 21st birthday is to hang out with her friends, finish her second year at Berkeley with flying colors, and maybe catch the eye of a hot musician playing a show at a club that she can now legally get into. Unfortunately, fate has other plans for her. A week before her birthday, she's kidnapped by the brooding and dangerous stranger with cold eyes and a lethal touch who has been stalking her on San Francisco's fog-shrouded streets. Solon Stavik isn't your average criminal, though. He's a centuries-old vampire who's caught between wanting to kill Lenore and wanting to save her. You see, Lenore, too, is a vampire. She just doesn't know it yet. Taken by a pair of vampire slayers when she was just an infant, Lenore was raised never knowing her true nature. All Lenore knows is that she has normal parents who love her, that she's exceptionally smart, and she's schemish around blood. Once she turns 21, she'll fully turn into a vampire, and Solon hopes he'll be there to guide her, opening her eyes to her deepest hunger, both sexual and otherwise. But this turning can't be kept a secret. Soon both slayers and vampires are hunting Lenore, with only Solon and his unpredictable motley crew of vampires to save her. So listen, like, if I don't read a vampire romance book, I will be sorely disappointed in myself. Really, any paranormal romance book, which is why I'm like having paranormal like books on my TBR, but like a vampire book, you know? I guess I could catch up with J.R. Ward's Black Dagger Brotherhood series, but I'm very behind. They're not really putting me in that kind of mood. Like, yes, they're vampires, but it's not fall time, you know? We had a few other romance books like on here, but like they're not super like that, but you know. But like one thing that I do want to mention, since I already mentioned that I want to read some vampire books, I would love it if I can read some shifter romance books. Take it back to when before I started watching BookTube, when that was pretty much all I was reading. Don't have any specific ones in mind. If you guys have any recommendations, I've been checking out on Kindle Unlimited, so, but literally just some shifter romance books. That would be ideal. These last few books that I'm going to be mentioning are books that aren't horror or the romance that obviously, but they're just giving me the fall vibe and just books that I really need to read. Next book on my TBR is Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafon. This I recently hauled in my last book haul. This is set in Barcelona, 1945, and this is following a book dealer's son whose name is Daniel, and he is mourning the loss of his mother. He finds this book called The Shadow of the Wind by Julian Carax, and he finds a lot of solace in this book. So after he finishes this book, he starts to like look for more of this author's works, and he finds out that for some reason, like all of this author's books are just being destroyed, and he actually might have the last copy of any of his final works. So in his quest to find more of his books, he soon finds himself on this adventure to solve the mystery of what's going on, and in doing so, it opens up this door to Barcelona's darkest secrets. This is just a story filled with murder, madness, and doomed love. I have the audiobook for this, so I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get to this hopefully soon. I've heard very good things about this book, and I really want to read this because the author's, I think, second or third book, just the cover, because once again, I am a cover buyer, but it really draws my attention. It's like something with angels, but I can't remember what it is exactly. But yeah, very excited to read this book. So this next book on my TBR, you're gonna see it and you're gonna be like, oh yeah, that makes sense of why it's on my TBR. But that is Halloween Season by Lucy A. Snyder, and this is just a very tiny book filled with little short stories set during Halloween. And I think there are some spooky stories. I think there's also some feel-good stories, but like, you get it. You understand why. So the next book that is on my TBR is The Supernatural Enhancements by Edgar Cantero. This is about a man who is given this house when one of his like distant relatives passes away, and it turns out this house is haunted. So he starts to like kind of dig in to see what's going on, because this house has like a history of suicides with all of the past owners, such as his uncle who gave him the house, as well I believe his father. It's got elements of gothic horror, it's got elements of thriller suspense, and I believe this is also, yes, this is a like book filled with like multimedia images. This next book probably going to want to read like more towards the end of November. Like, it seems like a great book to read when it's going from like fall to winter, like great for that transitioning period. That is The Lights of Prague by Nicole Jarvis, and this is set in the city of Prague. It's got vampires, it's got ghosts. This cover is just super cool. It is giving me that like fall to winter fantasy vibe. Probably read it late November, early December, even though this is technically for fall TBR, but whatever. These are all books that I like do want to read, but if I honestly don't read them, it won't be that big of a deal. But this next book that I'm going to be talking about, I just need to read it sometime within these next 3 months because I've had it for so long. That book is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. For those of you who've been watching my channel for like a while or have just seen this tattoo, you might be like, Jessica, you have a Six of Crows tattoo. You fucking met Leigh Bardugo. You went to her event for this book and you still haven't read it. Don't fucking judge me, okay? I know. I just need to read this book. And also, like, don't say anything because I haven't even read fucking King of Scars, Rule of Wolves. I haven't even finished those 2 books. And also, we still haven't gotten any news within the second book, but like, why does that even matter? Like, why would I even care? Because I haven't even read this one. But I just really need to read this book within these next 3 months. This is one book that I need to read. The last 2 books that I'm going to be talking about are books that, yes, I would love to read, but that's just kind of like if I just need something just in the middle of each book. But the first one is 13 Tales of Horror by 13 Masters of Horror, which is just a book with 13 short horror stories. And the next one is Tales of Terror by Christopher Pike. I read this book originally when I was like in high school. I would love to reread this one because like these books are both incredibly short and I don't even have to read the book in their entireties. I just need to read at least a few of these short stories if I just need like a quick palate cleanser. Those are all of the books that hopefully I will get to. Let's be honest, I'm probably going to be reading other books besides these ones because I am a mood reader, but these are just books that I would really love to read within these next 2 months / 3 months, really, let's be honest. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoy. If you guys have read any of these books and you think like, hey, you should read this one, like you should prioritize this one, let me know. Also, let me know some of the books you guys are prioritizing within the fall / autumn time. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in my next video. Who knows when that'll be? Hopefully before the end of the year. Bye.